Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn. Welcome once again to How We're the Podcast. And after doing a few of these in the summer, we thought we'd let the dust settle on some of our, let's just say, controversial selections before we embarked on firing them back up again. And what better time than our second international break after only 7 games, which regular listeners might be able to tell pisses me off. But it does mean today we can continue our top 10 series, so every cloud and all of that. If you haven't listened to any of these from the summer, please go back and put yourself in a position where you can mock us relentlessly. But this is where we shamelessly steal the match of the day top 10 format and apply a Sunderland twist to it. And today we've set ourselves another tough one, because today we're going to be ordering the top 10 Sunderland Premier League games at the Stadium of Light. So once again, I'm not going to be doing this alone. To help me, I've got 2 fine gentlemen who are chomping at the bit to put their head on the blocks and explain their thinking once again. First up, we have someone who just keeps coming back for more when it comes to these top 10s, because we have Andrew Smithson with us. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, you okay?
No, I'm not. The kids have given me this bloody lurgy and I can't get rid of it, mate. And it's just going to linger all winter and I need to hunker down and hibernate or something.
Well, I've got a bone to pick with you as well, Chris. So, you know.
Oh, as usual.
Yes, exactly. Get ready. Hey, that was pointed, that, Chris, as usual. Am I getting a reputation as a pain in the backside?
The general collection of people I meant, Andrew, usually have a bone to pick with me.
Just in the car there about half an hour ago, I was listening to your Carl Winchester episode. You asked him a lot of questions about Lee Johnson, and not once did you mention that I was his biggest fan or give me credit for anything like that. So, you know, there's you like, oh, Lee Johnson was canny for your career, and was he an inspiration, and blah, blah, blah. I feel cheated, really, Chris. So I hope you're happy with yourself.
First of all, Carl Winchester was an absolutely top man, and we're very grateful him spending his time. Secondly, I was kind of bigging him up. I was like making your top 10 look even better, because I was saying we were outside the playoffs and he went on that fantastic run and we almost got automatic before the wheels came off and we won 1 in 6 or something in that run in. So I was bigging him up for you, Andrew.
Yes, you were. And in all seriousness, lovely fella from what I could tell. I've heard him speak before and I've always been pretty fond of him. But he seemed like a nice bloke.
Yeah, top fella, taking the time out for us, especially he's still in his boots, isn't he? Still playing and still being able to do it over at Derry City. So yeah, so anyone, thanks Andrew for the plug, by the way. Anyone who hasn't listened to that, go back and give it a listen. But next up, we have another one who just can't get enough of taking the risk of putting these orders together. We have Jonny Hawley with us. Hello, Jonny.
Hello, Chris, and I'm feeling much more confident now that you've read out the title of this top 10 again. Because peek behind the curtain, there's me saying, "Oh, what about the Coventry playoff game? That was pretty good. Aye, good Premier League game, that, Johnny." Oh, cheers, lads.
Yeah, and another peek behind the curtain that we were talking about games where we'd beaten the Mags, and we just said, "Oh, Newcastle 2015," and we ended up talking about different games without realising it.
Well, as you said before we came on, though, Chris, such old hat beating the Mags at the stadium. I like there's so many. They all just merge into one, don't they? After a while.
Well, it was. We were going through them, and I was going, "Well, Mags 2013, 2015, 2015 again." I was going, "Hang on, I've confused which one's which and which goals were scored and which one and all this sort of stuff." But yeah, it's easy done, isn't it? I was going to ask you quickly, Johnny, though, because we did a lot of player top tens. How different is it? Because with a match, you haven't just got the match itself. Because it might be a bit of a running theme. You've got what happened during the game, but with a lot of these games, it's the context around it, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's in a weird way, it's kind of similar to doing the lists of players because you're obviously trying to balance the quality of the player with the longevity at the club or what they actually achieved while they were here and, who they played with and all the rest of it. You've kind of got the same calculations here, but obviously slightly different where it's, okay, how good was the actual game of football? Because you can have some top-notch results that are actually made up by pretty substandard games at times, particularly at the Stadium of Light, although often without the result part, just the shit game of football. But, that to one side, you've got how good was the game, you've got what did it mean, whether that's in the context of an atmosphere on the day, whether that's a run of form you're on, whether that's the season you have overall. There's all those things that go into it. And the thing that I did like, though, is picking the list of players feels very much like you're always offending somebody or like, there's always somebody on the wrong end of something. Whereas with the games, like, Spurs in 2000 and whatever, that it can't get offended at me if I call it shit. Like, I can do what I want and say what I like. And at the end of the day, we're going to have a list and people are going to like them or not like them, but I haven't put anyone's nose out of joint. So it takes a bit of the pressure off, actually.
Well, it does, but you are forgetting that there is such a thing as social media, which will still take you down, whatever, Johnny. So it makes absolutely no difference. I saw you nodding along, Andrew. You're in agreement in terms of it's slightly more generic, doing games and that obviously there's 22 players on a pitch to start with, but you were nodding along with the context thing and that. But it makes it difficult, doesn't it? If a game meant so much, but actually you look back and you go, God, actually it was a dire game.
Exactly, and it's a lovely caveat again to just cover our backs for our selections.
You always come up with a couple before we start, Andrew.
Oh, exactly. You've always got to keep yourself right. But yes, definitely, some games might have been more important. But if it was a bit of a rubbish match in which we've squeaked the result, is that necessarily the greatest game, or just you got the job done? And yeah. The other way round, you could have a game that you walk away from thinking, wow, what a brilliant match. But then at the end of the season, you finish mid-table, you've achieved nothing, and it's not really contributed to the history of the club in a wider sense. So it is tricky. I fully get what Johnny's saying about how when you are picking games rather than individuals, you're less likely to upset somebody or say something that you feel awkward saying. The other thing for me is, in my picks, again, another caveat coming here, sometimes it depends just about my memories, what was happening in my lifetime then. Did I go to the pub with me mates afterwards? Things like that. And that, to me, all adds to whether certain games go down in history.
Yeah, we were talking about that before we came on, and I've talked about my really random memory of remembering really rubbish things. And I mean, God, there's been some fantastic games, and one of my biggest memories is watching Jan Mulby play for Norwich City back in 1996 when we got beat and it was freezing cold. Only 14,000 people there, but it's just random, isn't it? You just want to remember the good things, but your brain goes, no, you're going to remember that freezing cold day when Jan Mulby took the piss and you got beat 1-0. But yeah, that's how it works. But anyway, let's crack on.
Sounds like the kind of experience a man might model his playing style on, or something like that.
Anyone who knows me will know that I did as little as possible. Tried to stand in that centre circle, spray from wing to wing, and do absolutely nothing, Johnny. That was the target that I came out with at the end. But speaking of that, I will apologise because if I hand over to you quicker than you think, it's because my voice is about to give out, so I'll be struggling on through. But anyway, let's crack on because, as I said, we're shamelessly stealing the BBC Match of the Day top 10 format. So anyone not familiar, we pick a subject to rank, which in this case, as we said, is the top 10 Sunderland AFC Premier League games at the Stadium of Light. So we first had to shorten this list down to 10 to get our shortlist together. And then today in the podcast, we're going to put those 10 into some sort of order from best to worst. And if I tell you that Johnny and Andrew only agreed on 2 games that should be in the bottom half and agreed on 2 games that should be in the top half, you can already see there wasn't much agreement. And then when I threw my selection in, I thought the ones that they agreed on were in the wrong half altogether. So this should get interesting. But let's get into our top 10 that we've selected today. So the ones that we are going to discuss, and this is in chronological order. We've got Chelsea beating Chelsea 4-1 in December 1999. We've got the 1-0 win over Spurs in August 2007. We've got the 2-1 victory over Newcastle in October 2008, which was a running theme when we were picking these games. We've got a 3-1 victory over Spurs in April 2010. The 1-0 victory over Manchester City in January 2012, which if my voice was better, I might have an attempt at the commentary that day, but I'm really not because that will be the end of my voice. We then go to October 2013 when we beat Newcastle 2-1. Then again, we beat Newcastle in October 2015, 3-0. That makes the top 10. Then we come on to May 2016 because we've got 2 games in this month. We have Chelsea where we won 3-2 and Everton where we won 3-0. And the final one, we have one from the current season where the opening day of the season, we beat West Ham United 3-0 August 2025, of course. Now, just a few to miss out. And you might scream and shout at us that some of these should have made it, and that's absolutely fine, to be honest, because we went backwards and forwards picking the list. But we've got one that I threw in actually because I remember the atmosphere at the first time we had Derby at the Stadium of Light in February 2000. The atmosphere was unbelievable. We drew that game 2-2, but being the first at the stadium was fantastic. When we beat Arsenal in August 2000, 1-0. Middlesbrough from April 2008 when we won 3-2. I've thrown in Hull City when we beat them 4-1 in September 2009 because I think we thought we were all going places at that point. September 2009 as well when we beat Wolves 5-2. October 2009 beat Liverpool 1-0. Arsenal in November 2009 beat them 1-0. Bolton 4-0 in March 2010. Liverpool, again, beat them 1-0 in March 2012. I think, and I'm trying to think which one of those was the beach ball one, but one of them was the beach ball one.
Beach ball was 2009.
2009, yep, that's it. My memory of that time, I think I was out a lot during that time, so it all merges into one. And then where did I go up to? We got March 2012 when we beat Liverpool 1-0. April 2015 when we beat Newcastle 1-0. And we come on to February 2016 when we beat Manchester United 2-1. Those are just some of the games to miss out. But Andrew, I mean, which ones were the closest, do you think, out of those to miss out?
I really enjoyed the Middlesbrough win in 2008. It was, if I remember correctly, Chris, it was the game that mathematically secured our place in the Premier League that year, and it was a good game. So it had both those aspects of importance and entertainment. The 2-2 draw against Newcastle, I remember that being quite enjoyable because we came from 2 behind. And I seem to think as well, we play Man United when we were both near the top of the table one year, and we went 2-0 up that day. That was quite an entertaining game.
Gavin McCann scored the second, I think.
Yes, that sounds familiar, but that was the other way around because we actually gave up the advantage. That probably keeps that away from the contenders. But yeah, that list you've worked through there, loads of really good options in that, and that's the whole point of these discussions. There'll probably be somebody listening to us right now thinking, I'd have a completely different shortlist to pick from.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. And again, we've said it on other top tens, but we don't claim to be the absolute. I mean, anybody can have their say, and please put your top tens together. It's interesting, and I think it says everything that the three of us can't agree. Never mind anything else. But Jonny, you were kind of nodding along a little bit there. I mean, was there any other games that you thought actually that was really close to getting into that shortlist?
To be honest, there's a couple of games that just popped into my head as you were speaking, and they wouldn't have made my list because I think they were overshadowed by the away games that surrounded them in that particular run. But Gus Poyet's miracle run at the end of 13-14, there was the two home games which, in my head, sort of come as a pair, which was Cardiff and West Brom. And I think we put 4 past each of them, if I remember.
I think it was 4-0 and 2-0, but I could be wrong.
I could be well off on the number of goals scored, but the reason they stick in my head, Cardiff, we definitely put 4 past. And I remember being blown away that day because even Giaccherini looked class. I was like, what bloody hell? He's absolutely found the magic elixir here. We're going right to the top with this guy. And the other game against West Brom, to be honest, I forget most of the rest of what happened in that game because of how good Fabio Barini's goal was. The one where Seb Larsson just dinks it over the defence and Barini catches it on the volley on the run. I remember going away from that game. And like I say, I mean, everyone remembers the visit to Old Trafford, the visit to Man City, the visit to Chelsea, and those were bigger and better results. But I just remember going away from that game like, bloody hell, how have we signed this fella on loan? What's he doing? We need to get him back. And then, the rest is history. But those games, they stick out in my head. But like I say, I think overshadowed by what came just before and after.
Well, just quickly on that, Jonny, because you've just been talking about games, and I was the perfect example was the Jan Mulby one. That sometimes you remember moments, but so again, how do we look at these sometimes? How do you split these games where some games you think actually that was a really poor game, but you could almost point to in some ways dare I say it, the Coventry playoff game where in a lot of people's minds that will never ever be beaten. Whereas actually, if you look, we were under the cosh for a lot of the game in terms of territory and possession, but that one moment will put it at the top of everyone's list, I think, wouldn't it?
Well, the perfect example of that is the reason that we've picked the Man City game we've picked. Because we went through a little run, didn't we, for a few years where we were getting good results at home against Man City. I mean, there was one where, sorry to bring the name up, but Mr. Johnson scored a long ranger, but that was like that kind of squirmed under. I think it might even have been Pantilimon in goal for them instead of Joe Hart, but whoever it was in net, it kind of squirmed under and it shouldn't really have gone in. There was one where Phil Bardsley, I think, scored the winner. And again, it was like, it might have even been quite early on, that goal. So then it was, the rest of the game was a bit of a back to the wall jobby. But the City game we've picked is the one where we have the last gasp, last kick of the game, and your voice not being good enough is a good thing, and also I'm not doing it. But I tell you now, I could do that commentary word for word, top of the head every time, because I've watched it like hundreds and hundreds of times, and that's why we've picked it, because they're all the same result basically, but we've picked the one with the moment. And I think that's illustrative of the whole list, because it's what, in a lot of ways, what you like football for, isn't it? It's why we all actually watch and follow football. It's for the moments, and they are what puts the elite games and the elite players and the elite teams at the top, is in the big moments they deliver. And thankfully, we've got a list of games where Sunderland were the team delivering in the moment and on the right side of it, which is quite nice to talk about, isn't it?
It's interesting there that you it is nice to talk about, by the way, Jonny. Yes, sorry. It's interesting what you say about moments and how some of these performances are more backs to the wall. Something that jumped out at me when we were talking about potential selections, in terms of Premier League at the Stadium of Light, there's very few times where we've absolutely battered somebody. Maybe the 4-0 against Bolton probably is our biggest Premier League win in the stadium of late. I remember beating Derby away from home 5-0. I can't, unless an obvious one's,
I certainly can't pull a 5-0 off the top of my head, and you'd think
yeah.
you would if we'd had one.
Yeah.
It was the 5-2, and I think the Wolves game was the only time I remember scoring 5.
Yes. Yeah.
I've seen other teams score 4 and 5 at the stadium a fair few times, but not us.
Keep it light, Johnny, keep it light.
So what I'm saying is basically, Reggie's, pull your finger out. We want a couple of 6-0s by the end of the season, or we're going to be rioting again, I think.
You don't ask for much, do you?
No.
But I mean, where do you stand very quickly on that, Andrew? Because there's probably been some fantastic end-to-end games that actually we've probably forgotten all about because it was maybe only 1-0 or something, or it was 1-1 at the end of the day. But they might have been better games than some of the ones we've got on the list.
Exactly, and that's why we say people listening in, by all means, get in touch, because there'll be loads of games that for whatever reason you could make a good argument for. And again, it depends what you want. Me personally, I'm happy to sit through 90 minutes of rubbish if Sunderland come away with the result they need. But some people want something else. Some people enjoy that kind of end-to-end basketball style type of action. So you're dead right. We could very easily be talking about a completely different set of 10. Although I don't want to hammer that point home too much, because then that just basically writes off this next hour or so we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, look, let's get into it. And actually, I was just thinking while you were talking there that it's a good job we don't do video on this, because people would be saying we look like the man from the milk tray. We're all here in our dark shirts.
And they would have also seen me being close to death after Andrew racked out his Regis. Let's have a 5-0. Thank God for the mute button.
Yep, that's it. But look, let's get into it. Let's start with our top 10s. And Andrew, if we can start with you, can you give us your countdown from 10 to 6, please?
Yes, certainly. Number 10 was Newcastle in 2015. We are going with the 3-0 win there, aren't we? Not the 1-0 win.
Yep.
Interchangeable, that one. Number 9 was 3-0 again against Everton in 2016. Number 8, another 3-0 this year against West Ham. Number 7 was a victory against the Mags in 2013. And number 6 was a victory against the Mags. Both of these were 2-1 wins. This one was 2008.
I see what you mean, Chris, actually.
I always love watching the reactions of the other people when somebody's given their first rundown of and then they realise how much they've agreed or disagreed on it, and the big smile comes across their face. But Andrew, let's start off with the most recent game. Let's start off with the West Ham game. 16th of August, 2025. And looking at where you've got it, both of you, I mean, we'll come on to Johnny's got a very similar place, but you've got it down there, and you look at, again, this one seems to be on paper, you've got context, return at the Premier League, fantastic atmosphere, unbelievable. 1-3-0, relatively comfortable in the end, I'd say. Over 46,000 there. I mean, it's got almost everything. I mean, but is it still down there because you don't know of the overall context, because the season hasn't played out?
100%. As a day, it was brilliant. That atmosphere was one of the best atmospheres at the stadium. It is just that slight concern that we'll not know until a few years down the line whether it was the start of a really successful period in Sunderland history. I've always been confident going into this season that Sunderland will be more than safe, but you still have those lingering doubts. So certainly to go and beat an established Premier League team so comfortably was massive. But if things turn sour and we end up going down somehow at the end of the season, that does just slightly taint some of those feelings. But hey, by all means, in a couple of years' time when we sit down and do our next top 10, that could very easily be higher up the list for me.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny, I'll just we'll come on to your 6 to 10 in a minute, but it's in a similar place. Have you got similar feelings to Andrew about it? Because when you look at the actual game, first half it was to and fro, wasn't it? It wasn't like it was all Sunderland.
I have very similar feelings as Andrew to this in regards to this game. I think for me, something that elevates this above a couple of other entries on the list personally is it was fairly comprehensive in the end. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily reflect exactly the patterns of play, but 3-0 with the gloss put on very nicely at the end by Wilson Isidore. The game, or the atmosphere, should I say, the atmosphere kind of required that. Like, it was so built up and everyone was so, full of energy. And I mean, the noise was incredible and there was the tifo before the game and all the rest of it. And okay, that's not been unique to just that game recently. We've clearly made an effort to improve the atmosphere. So we've seen that a few times, but it was just all perfectly set up. And it was in the back of your mind, like Andrew, you've got the, typical Sunderland here would turn up and lose and deflate everyone. And, the sun's shining, it's hot, it's warm, it's nice. It's the first game back. Everyone's excited. And the game actually delivered. It's, one of the rare times in the grand scheme of things, but one of many times recently where the build-up has actually been paid off and we've actually turned up and gone, actually, do you know what? This is our day. It's our time to celebrate. We're going to go on that pitch and it doesn't matter what they do, we're going to beat them. And we did, and it was comfortable. And the goals were decent as well. Like, the excitement of seeing so many expensive new players as well, just everything on the day really did sort of dial up to 11, didn't it? And I think that for me is what elevates it. Whereas, like Andrew correctly says, it had the context of being the return to the Premier League, but we don't know yet really what does it mean. And until you know really what it means, I don't think you could argue for putting it any higher up. But it's not a bad little game to have on the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Andrew, just very quickly, just from a historical sense, let me count 7 players in the starting 11 making their debut, and another one from the bench. There can't have been many other occasions where we've had numbers like that on the opening day of the season.
No, I can't think of any. And if I was writing quiz questions, that would have been one of my quiz questions, Chris. Yeah, it just really underlined that idea, didn't it? That this was a new team completely. There was a couple of the old Championship players on the fringes there and on the bench, but this whole day did have a feeling of this is a new Sunderland AFC and we are doing things differently now. We often talk about, don't we, the typical Sunderland idea, and Jonny said there, there is that little nagging doubt in the back of your mind. But really, let's face it, on that day, it all looked geared up to this being a new club with a new sense around it. Typical Sunderland in years to come might not be shooting ourselves in the foot. And that's why there is the chance that West Ham in 2025 ends up being one of the most important, one of the best remembered games in Stadium Elite history. Hopefully so, we'll see, but it's nice to think, isn't it?
It's very nice to think. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave everyone on the edge of their seat because we're going to find out Jonny's rundown from 10 to 6 after these few ads.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
And welcome back to How We're the podcast. And we've heard Andrew's bottom five, and now it's time to hear Jonny's bottom five. Can we have your rundown, please, from 10 to 6, Jonny?
You certainly can. 10th, I've got Spurs in 2007. 9th, I've got Chelsea in 1999. 8th, I've got Spurs in 2010. I've got Andrew very angry on the other side of the screen as well. So 8th, Spurs in 2010. 7th, I've got West Ham 2025. And 6th, I've got the 3-0 against Newcastle in 2015.
Right. Okay. So, and let's see, Andrew kind of half nodding along, and
I've never seen him look so intense.
Half head in hands.
Like we said, we've all got our different opinions, and it surprised me. But hey, no worry. Listen, your feelings are just as valid as mine.
You missed a career in diplomacy, Andrew.
I did forget that I was on screen here and you could see my face, but my words sound fairly magnanimous.
He's challenging Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, Andrew. But Jonny, I want to start with October 2015. We beat Newcastle 3-0, and you've got this in 6th. And it was, at this point, it was, beating them at the stadium, and I would seem to do well at St. James's Park. And this game, just, if you look at the first half, and it all came down to the Colaccini sending off with, I think it was his clash with Fletcher, that kind of gave us the breakthrough. But Newcastle seemed to be kind of all over us in that first half. But 3-0 against the Mags, I mean, it's not something that happens every day at home, is it?
Absolutely. It was, I think it's been long enough now, because it's been almost exactly a decade. I think we can all admit it was never a red card, right?
No,
which
we'll
makes
never
it,
admit that.
No, but it makes it all the sweeter, surely. He gets sent off, they're fuming, absolutely spitting about it. They've kind of got a point, and then we go, "Oh, you've had a red card. It's harsh, was it? Oh well, we'll just stick 3 past you and send you on your way, so you don't have to worry about it anymore." It was brilliant, wasn't it, to slap them about like that on our own patch after seeing it happen. I think at this point, had it already happened twice at St. James's in the preceding years? We had the 3-0 under Poyet, we had the 3-0 under Di Canio. So it was nice to finally get our own, wayside stamp of approval version of a 3-0 against Newcastle. So it felt much more like the icing on the cake of a run of derbies, rather than, the spark that kind of sets things going, or something a bit more pivotal in terms of, feeling like we were turning the tide a bit. This felt much more like, okay, now we're in the groove of beating Newcastle, so that's what we do. It's just how we're going to do it this time, And to have was it Yunus Kabul who went on that, sort of 50, 60 yard lung busting run and then dinks a ball to the back post for Fletcher. I mean, when you've got centre backs doing that, you're having a bit of a day, don't you? So yeah, that for me was very triumphant, that game. It was very much us kind of flexing our muscles at them and like, don't worry, lads, you just pipe down and let big boy Sunderland show you how it's done.
Yeah. By the way, that third goal, if anyone has a few minutes to get on the BBC report for that game, there's the worst graphic showing how that goal happened. It's just there's three icons for Mvila, Kabul and Fletcher, and there's just an arrow going from Mvila to Kabul and then Kabul to Fletcher. It's the worst ever. If anyone gets on, just have I might even stick it in for the artwork for this pod, because it's so absolutely ridiculous. But Andrew, you've actually got this in 10th place. This is bottom of the pile, a 3-0 victory against Newcastle United at home, bottom of the pile. But again, just kind of going on about the infringement, because it was Robert Madley who was the referee, and Newcastle were absolutely furious with him. And even in the report, it came up with the FA's law on impeding an opponent, and all of this to try and justify why he did it, or why he made the decision, and Colaccini got sent off. But I think it was in the first half hour, we'd had 3 shots compared with Newcastle's 10, and we were really under the cosh. And it was almost one of those games where you thought, oh no, that it hasn't got a good feeling about it. And we end up coming away Newcastle furious and winning the game 3-0.
Well, I mean, boo-hoo for Newcastle. And if any club these days cannot complain about rules not being adhered to, just look at how their takeover was signed off in the end. Let's not be too fussed, shall we, about a rule might have been broken. This game, if I remember rightly, was this the one that then got replayed on Championship Manager or something by one of the Newcastle newspapers, because they were just so apoplectic that they'd, as you say, in the first half had looked really good. I think Ola Toivonen was playing for us, and it wasn't until he was substituted that we kind of got to grips with the game.
That doesn't sound right for Toivonen.
Listen, he started in a 3-0 win against Newcastle, so we'll give him a pass. But yeah,
that was 10 minutes before the red card, actually, funnily enough.
Oh, well, there you go. But again, the fact that I wasn't 100% sure that was the game Toivonen was in does suggest that we kind of got quite blasé about wins over Newcastle at that time. We're talking tongue-in-cheek about it now, but yeah, it did almost become matter of fact, so much so that I honestly thought we were shortlisting a different win against them earlier on in the year. But it was memorable. That final goal was fantastic. Good graphic or not, Chris? I get the feeling that I'm getting the feeling the graphic kind of undersold it, because it was a brilliant
100%.
It was a brilliant goal, and the sun was shining, and it was just a lovely day. I remember as well that one, a bit like Johnny said, wasn't necessarily particularly nervous. It was because it was a derby day, but it was midway through the season. I think we'd had an okay start to the campaign. It wasn't like some of these other wins where you've not won for 2 months, you've sacked your manager, and then along come Newcastle, and you're thinking, oh, we're going to get a bit of a pezzling here.
Well, we actually only won 1 in the first 9 games.
But before this season, Chris, that was a good start for us in the Premier League.
Fair enough, yeah. We got 3 points.
Yeah, we had won a game by October, so I tell you what, I'd have snapped your arm off for that in about 8 of the seasons last time.
Sorry, I'm talking absolute rubbish, because I didn't spot that the win that I was looking at was Exeter City in the Cup. We hadn't won a game. So
now that sounds more like something in the Premier League.
In the first 9 league games, we hadn't won a game, and of course, it was Dick Advocat's last game against West Ham United, which was 2 games before this.
Yes.
Then there was the West Brom game, which Allardyce was in charge for, where we lost 1-0. Berahino scored, and then there was a Newcastle game. So we were in the bottom. We were second bottom after 9 games without a win, and then play Newcastle.
Well, as I was saying, we were going into the game on a pretty poor run of form. And, there was... do you know what would be really embarrassing? Would be if I had written a quiz question. I've realised, it was. I was going to say, it turns out it was the 9th time of asking in the league. So, but again, it just proves this point that he says, digging himself out, that games merge in your mind. I certainly didn't recall going into that game with that same level of anxiety. Maybe it was because we kind of had a hex over Newcastle by that point. And this, to me, just says why it's up at 10 and not elsewhere in the list, which still, the top 10 is still an achievement for it. Like Johnny says, I don't want to be offending any concepts of games, and I don't want I don't want this famous 3-0 win to be upset at hearing me slating it. This was probably the only ever victory against Newcastle where I didn't go into town afterwards. It was a Sunday game, I think, and I had jobs to do. we beat the Mags. And I was like, great, yeah, we've won. Better get myself down the shops there, Morrison's or wherever, and do the big shop. And I remember being in the shop a couple of hours later, just pushing the trolley around, just thinking, oh yeah, we've a couple of hours ago, we beat the Mags. That was all right. Whereas a lot of these other games, Barini scores a screamer or Kieran Richardson absolutely pings in a free kick. You're on about, right, I'm down the tattoo parlour right away. I'm going to get the goal graphic tattooed on me back.
As long as it's decent from the BBC, mind. As long as it's
If the BBC have come up trumps, I'm going to get it tattooed on me back. I'm going to absolutely paint the town red, and I'm going to, the next time I have a kid, I'm going to name it Kieran, whether it's a boy or girl. Whereas this one just in my mind, I think, hey, that was a good day, wasn't it? And that's as far as you go.
I tell you what, Andrew, the essence of Sunderland 3, Newcastle 0, October 2015 must be fuming right now with you.
Oh, no. Aye. Sorry, Mr. October. What was it? October 2000 and when? 2015.
Yeah.
Sincere apologies.
Listening to Andrew's rock and roll celebrations from 10 years ago, but let's move on to the next one. And Andrew, I'm going to come back to you actually, because we move on to we go into May 2016, which was the end of that season. It's the first actually from the selection from that season when we beat Everton 3-0. Now, looking at where you've got that in 9th place, just above the Newcastle game. And again, it was one of these that, this run kind of came out of nowhere, because we talked about that start of the season. After that game, I think we lost the next two. One of those was a good hammering at Everton, 6-2. So it wasn't like Allardyce just flicked a switch at this game. It went into the January window, and obviously he did what he did in the January window and spent the money, and brought in the players that he needed. But towards that end of the season, it was these two. Well, we'll come on to the second one, but this Everton game was the start where we thought, actually Allardyce has cracked this.
You're right. It did take time for him to kind of bed in his ideas. And yeah, that January was massive because he was able to bring in players that he needed. I remember before that, I think it must have been just before the Christmas period, because I think the weather was quite cold. It was a dreadful game at home to Southampton that we lost because Jan Mvia gave away a ridiculous penalty quite late on in the game. And I remember having proper rows with people around me saying, I think I can start to see Allardyce's plans come into fruition, which is hard to argue when you've just lost 1-0 at home. I don't even think Southampton were particularly good on the day. But I could start to see what we were trying to do under Allardyce. But it was a slow burner. It took time, and it wasn't until the end of this season that it really kicked into gear. I think towards the end of the year, wasn't it basically us and Leicester were the two form? Leicester won the title, and maybe we were the second best formed team, or certainly we were. Had it been all season, we'd continued that form, we would have finished well out of trouble. For me, though, even though it was just a couple of days after the Chelsea game, which I score a lot higher, the Everton game for me just there's that tinge of sadness because the story goes. For a start, it wasn't quite as anxious. I think the game against Chelsea was pivotal, whereas this was more just rubber stamping our survival. But everybody left the ground celebrating, singing curry, chips and rice, big Sam Allardyce. And, Sam Allardyce was doing that thing where he was waving his arms in front of the yeah. And we could all see the label on the inside of his blazer. But if we believe the story that seemed to come out, within a couple of hours, whilst we're all making our way home, him and Ellis Short are already sat down having dinner, and they're already having a bit of a sticking point over budget for the following season. And you just think, we've gone from this form team in the Premier League with signs of going somewhere, and then it all went a bit naff quite quickly, which is not this particular game's fault. And again, I apologise to whatever month that was that April or May 2016? Sincere apologies, big fans of 2016. Don't come after us. But yeah, it just, great night, but always going to have that element of it should have been the start of something, but in the end, it proved to be the beginning of the end, unfortunately.
Yeah. And we'll come on to it, Jonny, in a little bit. You've got this a little bit higher, but we can't go and talk about this Everton game without talking about Lamine Kone at the back.
Do you know what? Weirdly, in a similar way to what Andrew's just been talking about, thinking of that version of Kone makes us sad, because I remember what happened afterwards. You know, the 20 million bid from Everton that we knocked back, and then the performances or lack thereof the season after. But it hurts because of how good he was and how amazing he was, particularly towards the back end of that 15-16 season. And in this game in particular, he was just a colossus, wasn't he? I mean, obviously the goal where he just about rips the net off the, off the back of the posts. I think if you'd taken the net out the way and the north stand or whichever stand it was out the way, that ball would have probably travelled its way past, out of Weir side, past Tynes side. Like, it would have been making its way up towards the northern border, I reckon. So it was sort of, iconic is too strong a word, but it was, those moments are sort of like iconic, aren't they? Kone ripping the net off. There was, and not in this game, but when he put Yaya Toure basically into the, the top of the East stand against Man City. One of the only men I've ever seen give Yaya Toure a physical problem. And that Everton game felt very much sort of like the coming together of everything that was great about Kone, didn't it? And that Big Sam team in general, but even the manner of the victory, like, it was Van Arnold scored a free kick, didn't he? And then there was Kone's goal where he, again, like, nearly rips the net off. God forbid the poor fan who would have been in the way if he had ripped the net, by the way. I think they'd have needed some treatment.
Just quickly, Jonny, on that, you've got Khazri and Villian, Defoe, Barini, and it's Van Arnold taking a free kick.
Yeah, but again, though, that's what I mean. It sort of sums up that Allardyce team where you'd see people like Van Arnold taking a free kick, or you'd see, like, when we had Wickham and Fletcher and Defoe, and he plays them across the front three, and then you've got each of them just popping up in random places. Like, what are you doing there? But then one of them nods a ball down and Defoe smashes in a volley against the Mags, and you're like, oh, right, I get it. Like, it just works. And we had ridiculous things happening that season, didn't we? Van Arnold scores that free kick. We had the one against Man United, which I think Khazri took, and then it's, that somehow finds a way in. And, you've got Khazri almost scoring direct off corners most weeks around then as well, which, it felt very much like organised chaos in the best sort of way. And Lamine Kone was an organised chaos sort of centre-back. And, that everything about that team was built to upset people, like opposition, you know what I mean? It was so just get it up them and put the ball where they don't want it and put people where they don't expect them, and we'll make stuff happen. And I tell you what, we'll win games. Yeah. And again, at the risk of repeating myself 100 times, that game felt like it all just coming together, and that was the bow that was tied nicely on top. And like Andrew says, I mean, the celebrations afterwards and stuff. But back to your original question, yeah, Kone was bloody class.
Yeah. And then just incidentally, on the bench for Everton that night, so this is May 2016, on the bench for Everton that night were a certain Darren Gibson and Brian Oviedo. And then a few months later, anyway, let's move on to the next one. Jonny, I'm going to stick with you, mate, because I'm going to go back to 2007, opening day of the season. Roy Keane took us up, but this is the magic carpet ride. Opening day of the season, we've got Spurs at home, live on the box. Sky have said this is going to be a big one. The box office with Roy Keane back in the Premier League as a manager. We'll play Spurs. Michael Chopra at last minute takes the roof off, win 1-0. But you've got this in 10th, Jonny.
I've got it in 10th for a couple of reasons. The main reason being the game itself was not good. You know what I mean? I'm choosing to be a little bit kind there with the words I used to describe the match. But
do you need to apologise to the game there, Johnny?
I might need to severely apologise to August 2007 because that game was shit.
At this point, just quickly, I'm going to just read from the report of this game where it said. Basically, it said Chopra's winner on his league debut for the Black Hats was a dramatic end to a game otherwise almost devoid of incidents. It said there was plenty of effort and enthusiasm from both sides, but too many passes going astray. It took 27 minutes before there was a shot on target. So there you go.
Yeah, in some ways, I rest my case. Like the game was horrendous until it was amazing, and then when it was amazing, it was so far the other way. Like you say, I think they used the words "took the roof off," didn't they? And that about sums it up. And so this gets in for me, bottom of the list, but it gets in because again, it's like the scale of the achievement that it was kind of celebrating. In a way, it almost, that was the game where I know obviously we celebrated when we'd won the championship, of course we did, but that felt like the game where we as a fan base got to be like, and there's the celebration and catharsis for what we've just done to get here. You know, all that slog we've just gone through, at the time record low points to total, and then, you know, and then all of the upheaval and everything at the start of that championship season, and all the way through to promotion. This then was the moment where you get to have that relief and release that tension and the energy and everything out of you and be like, right, okay, that's done. We're here now. We're in the Premier League. Let's go. Yeah. And so for all those reasons of what's surrounding it, it has to be in here. But whereas I put the West Ham game a few places above this, that gets up there because the actual quality of the game was better and the quality of the team was better and stuff. But both of them, for me, they're parallels, aren't they, in terms of the emotional outburst that you get as a fan and as a collective fan base in the ground on that day. It's always going to be up there just for what it represents.
Yeah, it's one of them we were talking about, Andrew, wasn't it? About that moment versus the actual game itself. Because everybody, you talk about games at the stadium, like everybody will bring this one up just because of that one moment and completely forget about the dross that came before it. But it's funny because, again, looking at the BBC report for it, there's a comment on the BBC 606 debate as it was back in the day. And a Sunderland fan sent in a message saying, how good was McShane? An absolute bargain for 1.5 million.
This is why when you leave comments, you're meant to be anonymous, because there'll be somebody who'll drag that up in years to come. I'm still worried because we're all going mad on Aldrete and Mukaeli at the moment. Mukaeli, I've done myself there. But, you know, you do...
George Formby.
Yeah, you do have those things in the back of your mind thinking, is this going to come back to haunt me? When Robin Roofs, you know, lets one through his legs in a few weeks' time, you're thinking, I wish I hadn't gone big on them. But McShane was good on that day, in all honesty. And as Johnny says, there's obvious comparisons with the West Ham game because it's a club that is coming back into the Premier League after a horrible time with the previous two efforts in the top flight being absolutely shocking. But, you know, we've got big money signings. There's this whole mood and aura around Roy Keane. And that season, you would say, was the original version of Till the End, because a lot of our wins were late winners from Keane's squad. He obviously had that never say die attitude. What I will say is I had forgotten, like you said, Chris, you're exactly right. I can't remember any other specifics about the game. I don't particularly remember it being a bit of a non-event, but it just goes back to what I've said earlier. I couldn't give a nick. I'll watch the worst football ever if we get the results. Another thing I will say, mind, is supporting Sunderland, it's got to come with a health hazard. Chopra scores and he's apparently taken the roof off. We've got Johnny here saying if Kone scores, if the net wasn't there, he's going to take some poor lad's face off, and then the ball was going to travel out to beyond the boundaries of Wearside. I mean, flip my neck. That's you don't want to take that off your face if it's going that bad.
But the thing is, though, it's actually swings back round to being healthy again. Because if you are a Sunderland fan, there's not many goals going in for you to be worried about in the Stadium of Light. So you're not going to get taken up to the, the border with Tyneside anytime soon.
Well, if the council do proceed with this development of the Sheepfolds area, just get Kone down. They'll not need to pay for any plant. They'll just give him a bag of footballs and he can just take a few pot shots and demolish the rest of the buildings. And then there's a bit of a saving for the project. Happy days. Anyway, what was that?
Yep.
Good game against Spurs.
Well, yes. Well, and incidentally, just we had 5 debutants that day. And in the Spurs squad, they had 6 players who went on to play for Sunderland. Chimbonda, Kabul, Mulbranch, Tayanyo, Defoe and Bent.
Talk about a smorgasbord of different Sunderland careers there, by the way.
Yeah. So,
shall I just close down this document with all of my quiz questions that I was going to pepper into the episodes we go along here, because
sorry, I keep stealing your thunder. I apologise.
No,
actually, I was going to say whenever I think Paul McShane, I either think of Lovejoy or the fella from Heidi High, who they always used to show singing on Shooting Stars, the club singer. But anyway,
when I think of McShane, I just think of Goodison Park.
I don't know who's got the better memories there, but right, let's move on, because I want to move on to our next game, which is again Spurs, but we move to 2010 when we beat them 3-1, and this is 8th on your list, Johnny.
Yeah, so again, this is where trying to weigh up individual game quality versus occasion and the rest of it gets a bit tricky, because I think you can argue that the mean and the moment of the 1-0 that we just discussed should eclipse this game, really, even if this game was much better as an actual football match, which it was. And that's, I think that's a fair argument. But for me, I think there's a slight amount of bias, because as a younger man, and some would argue a child, depending on how old I want to make everyone feel, I just was fascinated with Zenden. I don't know what it is. I think it's something about like the idea of this guy turns up to Sunderland, no real fanfare, not loads of money, and then you look and you go, bloody hell, he's played for Liverpool and he's done this and he's done that and he's played for Middlesbrough as well, and that confused me. I was like, but like, we don't like Borough. Why are we signing their players? And just all of it kind of came together, and I was just at that impressionable sort of, I was 10, maybe 11 sort of at the time, still very much figuring out what football was in my brain. And Zenden just sort of scratched a bit of an itch in my brain that was like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. I like this guy. And he's dancing with Jean and all the rest of it. And the goal he scored in this game, wow. I still to this day, I kind of watched the clip back and I'm like, how's your foot there? How you're in your mid-30s, you're supposed to be getting on a bit for a footballer. How has your left foot just moved from where it was standing to where it just hit that ball? That doesn't make sense. So that goal, like I say, it was almost confusing more than it was anything else, but bloody hell, what a hit. One of those goals where, particularly pre sort of all social media proper taking off, and that way you can just, if I want to watch a goal now, you can just open up Twitter or whatever and just find it in 2 seconds. Then I was like, that's a goal I want to watch again and again and again. And, I'm watching Match of the Day. I'm getting up early to watch Match of the Day on the Sunday morning. We've recorded it. I'm watching it again later in the afternoon. Like, it just really stuck in my head massively of like, wow, I've just watched something a bit special there.
Yeah.
And I know it's only one goal in a game that, I couldn't really tell you much else even about that game. Like, I remember it being a good game, but that moment so overwhelmed everything else for me in my head that I was just like, that was a bit different. I've not seen that before very often. So yeah, for me, that bumps it up a couple of positions where I think if I'm being totally objective, I don't know if I can really put any other argument together than I really like that goal.
Well, I mean, Andrew, I'm just looking where you've got it, mate. I've completely forgotten. You've got it.
Keep scrolling.
Well,
the
actually,
end, Johnny.
That's a good shout. Actually, we'll come on to your top 5 now. I think this would be a good time. But actually, Andrew, just before you do that, again, I'm going to leave everyone on the edge of their seat because we're going to go to a few ads before we do that.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit purina.com/purple to learn more.
Big news! Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. One order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
And welcome back to How We're the Podcast. And you've joined us just as Andrew's going to give us his top 5.
Yeah, here we go. Number 5 was the Tottenham 1-0 win in 2007 that we've run through already. Number 4, beating Chelsea 3-2 in 2016. Number 3 was the 2012 1-0 win over Manchester City. Number 2, the famous 4-1 win over Chelsea in 1999. And number 1, Tottenham 2010, when we won 3-1.
Yeah, for a split second, I forgot you had this in your top spot. But actually, looking at it, you know, Johnny's talking about that fantastic goal from Bolo Zenden, which added to it. But we needed it because, you know, Darren Bent got 2, missed 2 penalties before that, and Anton Ferdinand had a goal ruled out. And then with 15 minutes to go, Peter Crouch gets one back, and you think, oh, we should be 4-0, 5-0 ahead here, and they're going to get something out of it.
Exactly right. Spurs were coming back into the game, and I seem to think there was a bit of needle with Spurs at the time, probably around the Bent transfer, and I'm assuming Redknapp was still at the club. He'd said a couple of things about Bent that really didn't need to be said. So yeah, the game was back and forth, and bizarrely, to just completely rubbish what I've said in the past about I'm happy to watch an absolute dog's dinner of a game as long as we get the points. One of the reasons this was so high up for me was this is probably one of the only games on this list that isn't just important to Sunderland and memorable to Sunderland. I think any neutral watching this would go away saying, wow, what a match. I think Bent scored within seconds and then had missed a penalty within the first couple of minutes. So it starts like an absolute train. And yeah, you've just got all of these amazing moments that happened. Not a dig, Johnny, but you said you only really think of the Zenden goal. But for me, I can think of lots of things that happened in this match. The Zenden goal you described perfectly was clearly the highlight, not just of that game, but probably that season. And I was very lucky where I was sat to have a fantastic view of it. But that Ferdinand goal, I mean, I don't know if you know what I'm going to mention now, but the way he ran over to the West Stand, bless him, and starts celebrating and busting out the, was it the moonwalk? I mean, yeah, Johnny, lovely moves there.
Well, only beaten by Alan Pardew, I think, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, we had a period because didn't Bolo Zenden try and do some sort of routine down at Chelsea? I think
his with I think it was with Asamoah Gyan for that goal. That was, yeah. I mean, Dad Danson doesn't even get close to covering that.
So, you know, bless him. Johnny's reeled off all of Bolo Zenden's clubs. What an amazing career. The only 2 things he's remembered for at Sunderland is one of the best goals I've ever seen live and one of the worst dance moves I've ever seen. You know, forget the trophies, forget the medals. But I just thought as a game, it had everything, and you just walk away from it. You're knackered. You've not played. You've just watched it, and you're absolutely shattered. And again, I know I'm more than happy to watch an average game the result's the main thing to me. But football is meant to be entertaining, and that for me was just 100% entertainment, that match.
Yeah. And just to finish off, Harry Redknapp said after the game, he said, from a neutral's point of view, it was probably a great game. They were up for it today. They don't play like that every week, do they? So he clearly did his research of Sunderland under Steve Bruce, didn't he? But let's move on, because Jonny, we need your top 5, please.
Yeah, certainly. So my top 5 is number 5, Everton 2016. Number 4, Chelsea 2016. Number 3, Newcastle 2013. Number 2, City 2012. And number 1, Newcastle 2008.
Yep. So I want to come on to Newcastle 2013, 2-1. This was third in your list, which you've got higher than the 3-0. And Fabio Borini was in the crowd at Old Trafford, wasn't he? Getting serenaded by all the Sunderland fans. And this is probably the main reason why this goal.
It's not probably, it's definitely, isn't it? Without this, there is no Fabio Borini at Sunderland story.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? This is what this is. And I don't mean that in a bad way about Borini either, because I love the guy. I thought he was brilliant this season, but the season itself hadn't got off to a good start. And we just kind of mentioned with reference to the other Newcastle game where we were winless going in. We were winless in the league this season. We might have been winless full stop because we were honking under Di Canio those first few games. He obviously gets the chop after West Brom, and there's all the talk about the players going to short to try and get him sacked and all the rest of it. So it was clearly a very unhappy camp, regardless of who's in the right or the wrong or whatever. Things are not going well behind the scenes. Poyet comes in, and we're all like, why, who the hell's this guy? Like, he'd been sacked from Brighton, hadn't he? And then there was some colourful rumours about how he handled that particular decision, which we'll not get into. But, he kind of lands at Sunderland, and we're all a bit like, well, who's this guy? We don't really know anything about him. And we'd had that interesting summer with Roberto Di Fanti calling the shots transfer-wise, and we've signed Altidore and Giaccherini, and Borini's coming on loan, and Manone on loan. And so we were very much like, we were finding our identity again as a club and a team. And you can argue we never actually found it until we got relegated a couple of times. But like I was kind of the inverse of what I was saying about the other Newcastle game is that one didn't feel like it was turning a tide. This one very much did. And I know we'd already beat them under Di Canio at St James's by this point, but that could easily just been a flash in the pan, couldn't it? We've seen that happen so many times over the years. You think you've turned a corner and you've not. But this one, for me, it did feel much more like a bit of a statement. Like, actually, Sunderland, even when we've not won a game and we've just sacked our manager and we've got no idea if any of the players are any good, now we can still beat Newcastle, though. It was a proper stand up and be counted sort of moment, and they did. They absolutely stood up and they were counted. And Josie Altidore definitely meant that assist for Borini. I'll have no adjudication over whether that was a first touch or not. He meant it. Thank you very much. And to cap the game off with that goal from Borini, again, a goal that I've watched so many times. I had a video on my phone of me sat in front of the telly, recording it, just the goal on my phone off the game that I'd recorded from the Super Sunday the day before, or whatever it was. I was just obsessed with it. I couldn't stop watching it. I couldn't. Every time I scored a goal, I wanted to do Borini's handbite celebration. It just that game and that goal took over my life for a good few months after that. So that's why it's so far up there for me. I feel like it had a very good blend of. It was a good game as well because it went a bit back and forth, didn't it? I think did Debussy score for them? I think, and I'm pretty sure I'm certain Stephen Fletcher scored for us. Earlier on in the game.
Yep.
And neither of those goals were spectacular or anything, but there was plenty in the game to keep you excited and watching. And then, like I said, to cap it off with that goal, just phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, and actually, Andrew, you've got this above the 3-0 win. Similar circumstances, but late on, as Jonny said, Borini actually came on as sub with 20 minutes to go. But it's almost, is it that kind of late drama that gets it up there? Because as we've known over the last few months or so, you can't beat a late goal, can you?
No, we always like a late goal. That was a huge part of it. But as Jonny has put, it was also the idea of the tide was turning against Newcastle. For a long time, our players seemed to choke in derby atmospheres, whereas in more recent games, prior to that FA Cup tie, it seemed to be the other way around. It was us getting the late goals. It was Newcastle that would have a player sent off or whatever. It was a amazing goal, and arguably one of the best loved goals at the stadium. It often gets repeated on various things. Like Jonny says, he had a version of it on his phone. Big call about Barini and whether that goal, take away that goal and he doesn't have a Sunderland career.
I feel like I should qualify that slightly. What I mean is, like, I think that was as important for him as it was for us. You know, like, imagine the confidence boost you get from rocking up in a weird time derby and scoring that, and then going forward, the goals he scored against them again in the cup final and the rest of it. I think you can trace a lot of that confidence back to this moment.
Without doubt, in my memory, in my mind, that was the game when Barini kind of kick-started his Sunderland career. I think you're dead right. Here's a quiz question for either of you gents. It was like I say, it was the game Barini kick-started his career. Do either of you remember the player who actually made his debut? Talk about baptism of fire. Here you are. Let's have a debut against the Mags. You know, see how you get on with that.
I'll leave it to Jonny because I've got it in front of us.
Fair dues. Fair dues.
I'm just trying, because we signed like 9,000 players. That's something, so I can't even just go, oh, well, who did we sign?
Give him a position.
Give us a position.
A defender, and unless I've got my geography horribly wrong, is he from the same country as Barini? I believe.
Would this... Oh, no, there's two... Is it? It's not... Is it Andrea Desena?
Well done.
No way.
Yes.
There's no way somebody is... Actually, no, I shouldn't say the rest of that sentence. It's very harsh on poor Desena. I am surprised a player of his ability is making his debut in a successful Tyne-Wear derby result. Put it that way.
Well, he had experience. I'll give him that. Was it Liverpool? Did he play? So he probably has played in big games. But yeah, it's
sent off for Liverpool at Old Trafford, I think.
Well, there you go.
My other abiding memory of Desena.
Well, he got sent off at Hull for us, didn't he, on a day we went down to 9?
Yes, Cattermole got sent off as well the same day. I think that might have been Cattermole's last red card for a good number of years as well, actually.
Oh, can he?
I like the back and forth. Andrew Desena, this is your life. But let's go on to the next game, because we go to the Martin O'Neill era, and we go to New Year's Day 2012. And I'll start with you, Andrew, on this, because it's Manchester City at home, Roberto Mancini's Manchester City. I mean, I'm not sure I've ever seen a more backs-to-the-wall game as this ever in my life. And this, I mean, talking about smash and grab, I mean, we didn't look like we could have a shot on target. And then, well, I'll let you tell the story. 1-1-0.
It's iconic, isn't it? Like you say, backs to the wall. It's probably the classic example of what Sunderland fans always want. The players giving it 100%. If G hadn't scored so late on, I would have still walked away from that game over the moon, because they put their bodies on the line. You've got a goalkeeper in Mignolet having to wear a face mask because he's got some sort of bone injury. It might have been his cheek. Sebastian Larsson is virtually, chundering at the end because he's playing with a sickness bug, and yet he is grafted and grafted. Just a phenomenal effort from us. I seem to think we must have cleared the ball off the line about 20 or 30 times. It was brilliant. It's a cliche about Sunderland, but Sunderland fans do like to see a player getting stuck in, and if they throw themselves into a tackle, everybody's up off their seats applauding them. We had 90 plus minutes of having to do that to hang on, and then suddenly from nowhere, this moment, you've both said there, lads, you remember the commentary. Was that Martin Tyler
It was. Martin Tyler in his absolute pomp as well, by the way.
So classic Martin Tyler. In later years, as you walk to the stadium, there's artwork of it on one of the walls on Hay Street, I think. I loved that time under O'Neill. We had quite a few games where we scored fantastic goals at home, but this was a different side of us. Even now, this footage pops up from different parts of the ground where people are filming that goal, and it is utter bedlam. The celebrations. There's some lad getting off with G when he runs towards the corner flag to celebrate.
He was never the same person, I think, after that.
No.
I know that lad as well.
Oh, get in. Well,
he said they both really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Pass on my regards, and I hope his relationship has recovered from that, committing adultery on live TV. Here's another thing, and it proves your point, Johnny. I wondered, did G even score any other goals for us? So I had a bit of a look. He'd apparently scored a consolation goal earlier on in that season in a defeat at home that I have no memory of. So he is a player who will always be a big part of Sunderland and Stadium Elite history, and yet he only scored twice for us. And my favourite stat of the lot from this game, that was the first time that the radio station BBC Swahili commentated live from the Stadium Elite.
I think that's what most Sunderland fans were talking in the stands when they were screaming and shouting. But, Johnny, a few things about this game. Shout out to Matt Kilgallen, who came on after 26 minutes for Wes Brown in a game like this, backs to the wall. The other thing, it was James McLean's full debut. So it was the first time he was in a starting 11. And just to kind of emphasise the point from the report, it talked about Sunderland. It said it was rich reward for a performance which would leave defensive coaches drooling, such was Sunderland's energy all over the pitch and their steel at the back. And that kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
It's the kind of game that I reckon if you asked Regis Lebris to make his top 10 games of football he's ever seen, this would probably get in his top 10, wouldn't it? Because it's the kind of thing he loves, that defensive solidity. I'd say Andrew's fuming.
No, I'm not fuming. In his top 10 are going to be all these 6-0 wins he's going to deliver.
Oh, right. Yes, sorry. Yeah. Man. If he had to make a top 10 of games he's not involved in, then of course, yeah. But yeah, that report sums it up pretty well, I think. It reminded me very much of, I can't remember the exact year of this game, but we played Chelsea at home a season or two afterwards. And I remember that game being a real backs-to-the-wall job as well. And I think we nicked a 0-0 draw that day against Chelsea. And this City game is that game, but with the late winner. And how much of a difference does that make? Because a 0-0 backs against the wall performance where we were defensively amazing, like against Chelsea, it's not even in the top 500 that comes into our heads. You'd be like, a 0-0 in the top 10 best games? But stick a G winner on the end, and my God, it's bloody close to being number one. It wasn't just the fact that we won, and obviously the last second nature of it making it so spectacular in the stadium. It was the fact that, I think Andrew kind of touched on it as well, we were on a bit of a decent run, under O'Neill as well. We were starting to put something, again, it's tying into the context, we were starting to put something decent together. We'd had that game against Blackburn where Larson scores the late free kick. We'd had, I can't remember the exact order of these games and when they came before or after the City game, but there was that game away at Wigan in the absolutely swirling rain where Gardner scores that 30-odd yard belter of a free kick and stuff. It was all contributing towards a real feel-good factor that was coming back to the club after, some pretty drab times at the end of Steve Bruce's reign. So obviously the drama of the late goal was phenomenal. And like I said, I can in my mind's eye, I'm watching that goal right now, every single bit of it. And I was so pleased that Andrew mentioned Seb Larson as well, actually, because it's Larson at one point in that move who, gets the ball, turns and kind of, you can almost see him internally thinking, I'm done here. I am absolutely goosed. And he just like plays the ball on and near enough collapses on the pitch straight away. Like, and then the little 1-2 G plays with Cess. The fact that G's offside by a good 2 yards as well, like again, just makes it a bit sweeter. And the presence of mind from G, by the way, to round Joe Hart and just roll it in when he had, all the confidence in front of goal of me most of the time. Just again, like one of those where everything came together and the result was all that more spectacular for us.
Yeah, speaking of the referee being that offside, the old match report on BBC, it's missed his first name off. And obviously it was Kevin Friend that day. So on the report, it just says ref Friend, which of course he was because he didn't give the offside. But
nice Freudian slip from the BBC there.
Yes. So the Man City game, both of you had third in the list. Now the next one.
Whoa. Stop telling lies about me. I had it second, thank you very much.
Oh, did you? Yes, you did have it. Yes, because you had Newcastle, didn't you? Third, of course you did. I read that wrong, but you had it up there anyway. It was all, it's all similar thing. Third, fourth, who cares really? But so you had that. The next one,
then, Chris.
The next one, because we go back to 2016, that Chelsea game. You both had fourth. Now this one we won 3-2. And both of you had this higher than the Everton one. So, Andrew, what did this one have over the Everton one? Because the Everton one had the big celebrations, didn't it?
It did. It was funny because it was a crazy week. It was only 3 or 4 days in between. Just very quickly on that Manchester City game, and you two being able to remember the commentary word by word. If ever you get chance to watch footage of the G goal without commentary, just listen to the crowd. That noise of like, oh, he's rounded that like, oh, he's rounded.
Oh my God, you've touched on something that I absolutely love about this goal, and I didn't say it. It is so good for the crowd noise of, go on. Yeah, like that pause. Another one that's amazing for that is Barini in the cup final. That's another proper go on silence and then the roar.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think there's a school of thought that G didn't actually kick the ball. It was just the fans sucked the ball in.
There's just it just superb, yeah. And like if you could pause time, just the ecstasy but also that surreal. Oh, hang on.
What's happening here?
Yeah. Almost you'd want to like rub your eyes just to check if you could in that moment. Like,
yeah. It's like
even the linesman, because he just stopped looking for offsides
like on a cartoon, like you say, when you rub your eyes or you look at the can of Coke you're drinking and thinking, hang on, what am I drinking here? Anyway, yes, that was just spine tingling. The Chelsea game, I would say was like that as well. Hairs on the back of the neck type of thing. The reason that is higher for me, Chris, than the Everton game was, if this turns out to be incorrect, I kind of don't want to know. But my feeling was at the start of the day, going to the game thinking we're relegated here. And then by the end of the day, perhaps results had gone for us or something. Maybe we'd somehow dragged ourselves out of the relegation zone at that point. I went away thinking, oh, that's us safe. So for me, the Everton game was more just a dotting the I's, crossing the T's type of thing. Whereas, this was the day that changed it. The atmosphere was just another level. We played really well, and at half time they must have scored just before the break. And there was this feeling at half time of, we're not going to stand for this. We're going to go at them again. Kazri, we've mentioned him earlier. I think he might have scored a screamer.
He did. I was right in line with it in the south stand. It was an absolute pinger, that. Beautiful.
Yeah. So, Kazri had that in him. And then the second half, there's something about when Sunderland score a goal, you go mental. But then if they score again moments afterwards, I don't know why, it almost seems to crank up a level. So was it Barini and then Defoe?
Yeah.
Or the other?
No, it was Barini then Defoe.
Yeah, just getting 2 goals in quick succession, it was going wild. And on a personal story for me, I remember getting ready to go to the game, getting me coat on. I'm literally at the front door, opening the front door, and up the path comes some family friends who'd moved away, and they'd travelled up from south and went, "Oh, we thought we'd surprise you." And I just looked at them and went, "Well, she's in if you want to go and talk to her. I'm off to the match." And they looked at me as if to go,
"What are you talking about?"
"Aye, Andrew, you know, we've just travelled up on spec as a bit of a surprise. I thought you'd be pleased to see us." Literally, I have never seen them since. I walked to the game cross thinking, "Oh, you cannot know a thing about me. Some friends you are. We don't like surprises for a start. We're not the type of family who like, hey, we've travelled however many hours up the road." I'm like, "You must know there's a match on. You've literally driven over the Wearmouth Bridge in at no point did you go, Andrew, this fella we've known all of his life. He'll probably be going to the match."
He likes a bit of the old football. I wonder if he's going to have a look out.
When I came home, like I say, the mood was like, hey, we've dragged ourselves out of the mire here. We're staying up. I was expecting to come in the house and my wife to be a bit like, "Oh, where, Andrew? That's a bit rude." But she was like, "No, fully understand." And I was like, "Get in, perfect." I was expecting a bit of a telling off, and I thought, I've dodged a bullet. I've seen this amazing game, great day, and yeah, for me, it was always going to be high up in the list of memories for me.
That's it. You would have missed the fourth best game as you've got it at the stadium, like if you didn't go.
Well, I'll give you a little clue there. You know, we were wondering about which Newcastle game to include, and the Defoe goal didn't make. I wasn't at that game. So whilst everybody else thinks that Defoe goal is amazing, I've got no time for it whatsoever.
Shall I tell the story of Gav going for a piss? Or do you want
to? I have every sympathy for Gav on that one.
Just on this one, Jonny, because you know, one of the things was that we started the before the game 2 points behind the Mags, and this lifted us above them, of course. You know, and that was part of it, wasn't it? But if you look at the fixtures as well, we'd only won 1 in 9 going into this game.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just superb storytelling from Andrew there, by the way. I'm still recovering a bit from that. That was class. Yeah, well, before you obviously just told us the actual cold hard facts of how many points it was and the rest of it, I was still totally agreeing with every word Andrew was saying. I remembered that, I couldn't remember that, you know, the points behind whoever and who else played that day or what have you, but I remember that feeling of going into the game nervous, like, you know, obviously it's Chelsea, and at the time this was, I mean, Chelsea are good again now, but this is not the Chelsea who finished 8th or whatever, or the Chelsea under Mourinho who finished whatever they finished in the end. But like, actually, no, I think that might have been the season they were bad. But my point is, like, this is a big name team. They'd won the European Cup a few seasons before. They'd won leagues in recent memory. So you're already going into the game thinking, I tell you what, I'll be happy if we get a result here. For it to have the relegation battle pressure riding on it as well, like, everything just did feel a bit ramped up going in. And like you say, the poor run we were on, you're going in, you're thinking, you know, I hope, but we'll do well to get a point out of this. And then it was one of the very rare occasions where there's a lot of times you watch Sunderland in particular, and 20 minutes in even, you're going, we could play this game for 3 days and we're not scoring. Every team's fans will have had that, you know, so many times. You just know sometimes it's not your day. That was one of the very rare occasions where you go, actually, yeah, this is our day. Like, they do look up for it. They look like they're battling. They look like they're ready for the fight. And obviously the Khazri goal was absolutely spectacular. But what struck me about the goals was Defoe's goal. I thought that, to me, was like a perfect microcosm of Defoe's Sunderland career, where there's chaos happening all around him at both ends of the pitch. We're in the middle of a pitched relegation battle. The Mags are a couple of points off us. Like, everything, again, is like ramped up to 11. It's all extreme, you know, emotions flying high, classic Sunderland stuff. The ball comes in the box, and Defoe's just the calmest man in the whole away side. Takes the ball down, swivels, fires it into the corner. Keeper need chance, need bother. There's your goal, lads. Don't worry, we've got the 3 points. We're going to stay up. And I completely agreed again with what Andrew was saying about why this game is above the Everton game, because the Everton game was very much almost a box-ticking exercise of like, we need to just actually get things put over the line now. That Chelsea game was everything was live and in flux and in the moment when we needed it, the absolute, the highest of pressure that you can get in the Premier League other than trying to win the thing is stay in it. And we were stood up when we were counted, which is a theme, I think, running through a lot of these games. And again, last thing I'll say, because I'm waffling, but Andrew was right when he talks about, like, similar to the City game, Sunderland fans want a team who's going to, in the hardest moments, when it's tough, they're going to put themselves on the line and be there. And the fact that that's a theme running through a lot of these games, I don't think is a coincidence.
Yeah. Two things on the game very quickly. John Terry got sent off in the last minute of the game, and it's interesting in the report. It said the 35-year-old may have played his last game for Chelsea after 483 appearances over 17 years. We wished he had, of course, because what happened the following year was we send him off, didn't we? But the other thing was, if you've got it in front of you, just tell me the answer. But there's a current Sunderland player on the bench for Chelsea that day.
I had set this one up, so I'll let Johnny have a little think about it.
Current Sunderland
player on the bench for Chelsea that day.
He came on, I think. I think he might have come on.
He did came on, actually. Last 10 minutes for Obi Mikel, yeah.
So he's a midfielder.
It's a good one, like.
It's
a good one.
Current Sunderland player came on for...
Yeah.
Just repeat that for him, please, Chris. It is current, yes.
Yeah.
So he still plays for... Yeah, no.
2025-26.
Ooh. That's... I bet I'm going to kick myself, but no names are coming to my head, so put us out my misery.
It was Bertrand Traore, who was on the bench for Chelsea.
Oh, yeah, that's... Yeah.
You are reflecting all of the listeners' frustrations if they didn't get it as well.
That's so annoying.
Let's move on, because in the next game we've also got Chelsea, and we go back to 1999, and it is weird saying 19-something. I have to admit, you have to really concentrate. And but yeah, this unbelievable game, absolutely ridiculous. For coming back to the Premier League, getting spanked off them on the opening day of the season, and then coming back to play them again at home. By this point, we've done the 5 in a row, I think it was. We've kind of just gone on this ridiculous run out of nowhere. And then Chelsea come to town. Gianluca Vialli's Chelsea, and, the people like Zola and Poyet and everybody had ripped us apart in the opening day. And by half-time, we are 4-0 up with a central midfield of Paul Thirlwell and Eric Roy. And Andrew, I just remember I was in the North Stand this day, and I remember almost, we've said it a couple of times, but just rubbing my eyes, just going, I don't know if this is me, like, dreaming the game beforehand, and at some point I'm going to wake up and, then I'm going to go at the game. It was just ridiculous. I remember at half-time, people turning around to each other and going, did that just happen?
Exactly. That's exactly the conversation I was having. Probably every other fan were all saying the same things. It was just so surreal. I might as well get this out of the way and the top. It was Torre Andre Flo was the other former or the other future Sunderland connection. So there was Poyet and Flo. I reckon Chris was going to try and catch me out with that one. So yeah.
Again, slightly different Sunderland careers there.
True, yes, true. But yeah, it was surreal, and it was the first time in my life that you could genuinely feel Sunderland were up there with the big boys. I'd seen us in the top flight before. I'd seen us reach the cup final, but it was always kind of like plucky underdog Sunderland, or Sunderland giving it their best go and scrapping their way to things. We matched them for skill and quality and blew away one of the best teams in the country at the time. And it was just this sense of it being surreal and people not quite believing is this our team? Is this our club in like a stunning stadium going toe to toe with the top side? One of the goals I think was on the highlight. Was it ITV had the highlights back then instead of Match of the Day?
Oh, might have.
I see.
This is criminally nerdy, but that was slightly before ITV, so it would have been BBC. ITV was like the early 2000s, so it was about 01 to 03 or 04-ish.
Well, fair dues. My apologies. Certainly the next season, the opening credits, one of the goals that was featured was Phillips's shot, which kind of like swerved in front of the keeper. And again, it just highlighted this wasn't just a Sunderland memory. This was a Premier League memory. It would have been on the Premier League years and everybody would have spoke about this game.
Andrew, just quickly on that, is there a more iconic Premier League goal at the Stadium of Light than that one, the Kevin Phillips volley?
Not that springs to mind. Maybe that Defoe one, which I missed, so therefore is null and void. So yeah, we'll stick with the Phillips goal. But it wasn't just the Phillips goal. Quinn was being the absolute epitome of Niall Quinn. We had a chat, didn't we, about the game against Spurs where he's making international class defenders just look like amateurs. One of the goals, I don't know if he actually scores it or if it hits off the post, but just the way he drops off Desai and chests the ball and then just volleys it is sensational.
It was so bad that at halftime, Vialli hooked Desai and brought John Terry on, didn't he? I mean, but Jonny, we're talking over a quarter of a century ago. You've grown up with people talking about this game, and you did, I think, again, because of this reason, you've got it in ninth, I would imagine. And it's tough. It's tough when, we experienced what was around it and everything, and that feeling of being in the Premier League. But there's a lot of parallels. Imagine if this season we go out and hammer someone, but then again, we'd hardly bought anybody. I mean, you're looking at the starting 11. There's only Eric Roa and Stefan Schwartz who were signed for that season. You actually look on the bench as well. In terms outfield players, all young. Darren Holloway, John Oster, Thomas Butler, and Michael Reddy were the 4 outfield players on the bench. But yeah, you've grown up with the kind of legend of people talking about this game. So what's your thoughts on it?
I reckon I'd seen Phillips's goal in that game probably a dozen times before I could even say the words Kevin Phillips. So if that gives you any indication as to how much I'm well aware of this game from an early age, I mean, listen, like you say, I've got it lower down on my list just because I didn't watch it live, obviously, because I would have been just turned 1 maybe by that time. So I'd have been struggling for a ticket, I reckon. But obviously I've seen the highlights of the game loads of times. I've seen the goals, and I think if this along with the Spurs 3-1 are the 2 games in the list that since we've had this conversation, I reckon I've probably done, I've done dirty a bit, and I should have put higher up the list, because I think you're right. When you take into context the fact that for this game, this was still such a surprise package of a Sunderland team. Not just because we were obviously, we'd off the back of the 98 playoffs and then we go up the following season. So it's new to the Premier League, Sunderland, of course, but also we hadn't signed a load of players. There was a lot of names in that team where you think like, wow, how are they going to do? How are they going to cope with a step up? To go and then be 4-0 up against Chelsea at half time, like you say, it's just like, what? Where did that come from? And then where did it go? Because it didn't happen again too often, did it?
When you made that noise, I thought you were talking about our French midfielder that day.
Listen, if you want some French, if you want me to say Ligue 1 again, Chris, you can just ask.
You know what that does to us, Jonny.
But yeah, no, I think this result. The reason I think that I ended up putting it lower, apart from just the fact that I hadn't watched it live, was because it's the kind of result that can herald a new era of like, wow, we are now a big team. And if that's what comes afterwards, then, you look back at a game like this as if it's the absolute stuff of immortalized legend, not just of your club, but like, it'll be a story in English football. Oh, bloody hell, Sunderland promoted, turned up, did Chelsea 4-1, and then look at what they ended up going on and doing. And you think like, if we just got into Europe or if we just managed to sneak into a cup final and win a cup in that time with that team, you're probably looking back on a game like this and going, that is day one of this Sunderland era beginning. And just because it's probably a bit unfair because it's not this game's fault that we didn't go on to do the things we could have done and nearly did do. But do you know what I mean? That's where, for me, a little bit like we said about the West Ham game this season, where if we're looking back in 3 or 4 years' time and going, bloody hell, we started like a house on fire, we stayed up comfortably, we got to a cup final, we snuck into Europe, whatever. That is going immediately into your top 4, probably, if games that you've seen at the Stadium of Light, isn't it? But we didn't, so it's not. And that's a bit where I am with this Chelsea game. It's like, it was almost too good for its own good. Like, the result was so good that you want what comes around it to match that level. And obviously, it's not necessarily the most realistic thing to want. But I think, yeah, for me, that's where it just pales a little bit compared to, say, Chelsea 2016, where that's... And I know that you can also argue, well, that was a relegation battle, so that's not achieving something. But I think you get the point that I'm trying to make, that the stuff that comes around that, I think, boosts it, whereas I think the stuff around this game, if anything, harms it because it was such a good result.
I agree entirely, Jonny. And yet, weirdly, it kind of still was our best achievement, because that season we finished 7th. This is a wider point I'm going on to now. That was our best ever finish since the 50s. And we equaled it the following season and haven't been anywhere near it since. So this really was probably the biggest and best performance in Sunderland's arguably best season in however many generations. Now,
recent history.
Yeah. Now, in 2025, 26, we're hoping to build the foundations to go and achieve those things you're talking about, the prolonged upper table finishes and cup runs and what have you. But the sad fact is, for Sunderland, for a long time, this probably was the day where we were having those conversations, and why Chris at halftime is going, is this really us?
It's the greed of hindsight, isn't it? I think it's colouring my view, because when you're just looking back at it and you're not living it in the moment, you look and you go, but we were just so close to doing this, and if we'd just done that instead, and we could have just been, we could have been in the Champions League and we would have been laughing. A bit like, the Leicester team a few years ago, they win the league, whatever, and then after that, they win an FA Cup, and then they finish 5th and they just miss out on the Champions League, and then they finish 5th again and they just miss out.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, as a Leicester fan, you're probably going, why, who cares, man? We're still in Europe. This is ridiculous. But now when you look back, you go, if they just hadn't drawn that game, or if they just turned that point into 3, they probably finish 4th, and then who knows, and maybe they don't get relegated a few years later. It's that kind of football. It's that kind of football fan maths or logic that in your head you're like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Like, if you just turn that point into 3 and then you do this, and it's like, yeah, the world doesn't work like that, but it's too easy. We all do it.
Yeah, just very quickly, 2 things about that. The first goal came after 45 seconds from Niall Quinn, and Kevin Phillips, when he scored his second, this is only the 4th of December in our first season in the Premier League, he scored his 16th league goal. Was it his second that day, which is just absolutely incredible. But let's move on, because we're on to our last one, and these two have gassed for far too long. They just won't shut up. So we'll get on to our last game, which is, and this was, and I'll get this one right, or I'll try to at least, this was Jonny's top pick, Newcastle 2008. This was the big one. This was the kind of one that kind of broke the dam, if you like, in terms of beating them at home, because we hadn't done it since 1980, I think it was, before this. Andrew put us right if that's wrong, but we ended up beating Newcastle. And again, another moment. We talked about that Phillips volley, the Richardson free kick in this one, Jonny.
Iconic. Just absolutely iconic. What do you say about that goal? Like, this is awful for an audio format podcast, but I'm almost like struck dumb trying to think of the words to say to do that goal justice. You have to watch it, don't you?
Jonny, just because Chris said you've been gassing on too much, don't now go on a huff and say no.
He's gone quiet.
I'm taking my mic home. Mum said it's my turn with the podcast equipment this week. So, no, that Richardson goal was unbelievable. My favourite thing about that goal is the still image taken from side on to the goal. And I can tell you both know the exact picture I mean straight away from your reaction. Like, it's from obviously the pitch side photographer, side onto the goal, and you can see the ball is trying to take the net about 3 foot backwards. Given's probably moved about 2 inches since the free kick was taken. It's already 6 yards behind him. And I must have sat and looked at that photo hundreds of times. And I've like, you know, when you sit and you go through the faces in the crowd and you're playing the game with yourself of, can I find anybody who's yet processed that ball has gone in, despite the fact that it's doing its best to get itself into the River Weir behind Shea Given? I don't think anyone has had physical time to react yet, even to look surprised by the time the ball's in the back of the net. It was that good of a strike. And yeah, I mean, look, the 28 years without a home win over Newcastle, the context around it. It's our first season back, wasn't it? No, this was second season back. Yeah, second season back. So we're still reasonably newish to the Premier League as a team. We're not an established mid-table outfit who, you know, those results always mean more to you when they're a struggle to come by. And talk about struggles to come by, 28 years. I mean, I still haven't been alive that long. That's how long we've gone without beating them at home.
It was our first top flight win against them since 1967.
Yeah, and I always remember, because that was my first derby that I like remember properly going to and like taking it all in. I think it might have been my second ever full stop. But I remember that game. Obviously, the atmosphere was phenomenal. The game itself was good as well. I mean, Cisse scored, didn't he? Early doors in the first half, and we'll call it a cross from Malbranc. We'll be generous. Call it a cross. But like, you know, that goal and Cisse's celebrations, obviously, that got everyone going. Like, we all loved him to bits. So again, it's a game where there's little bits of there's stuff sprinkled throughout to keep you invested in the game as it's going on, and then that moment. And I mean, what more can you say? Like the goal, the noise, the feeling. You know, I remember when I think this game, the final whistle blows, and I can't remember exactly who it is. One of the defenders just hoofs the ball straight into touch into the stands. Like, again, like the outpouring of passion and excitement and relief at full time. And I always remember when we were leaving the ground, there's a couple of things. One, we're leaving the ground and all the Sunderland fans are sticking the V's up at the mags as we're walking out, giving it 2-1. I join in as just an innocent little, like, 8-9-year-old. And my dad turns around and normally he'd be like, oh, you can't say that, you can't do that. And he just goes, oh, just don't tell your mother. We're just walking out the ground. He was so caught up in himself. He was like, yeah, you can do what you want. And on the way out, we walked past the Stokoe statue, and there must be a couple of dozen lads who are like hanging off his arms, hanging off his neck. There's scarves round it. There's hats on. There's, people have just put red and white everything over the statue. And it felt almost like a carnival walking out of the ground that day, because it was, like I say, because it had been that long, but obviously we'd been in the Championship loads of times, and it had never really been a fair contest for a long time. So there wasn't the same angst and the same negative associations as when you're in it and you keep getting beat and you keep getting beat and, you can never get over that line. It was more like, oh, wow, hang on. We can have a chance in these games again, actually. That is something that we're allowed to do. And again, very much like I said about the 2013 one, a turning of the tide moment. It was Sunderland are back. We're not just back, we're here to stay. We're serious. And it was a good team as well. We had I feel like it's easy to turn your nose up at it a little bit, those early days teams under Keane in the Premier League. Richardson was a good player on his day. I mean, he basically recreated that free kick, didn't he, the week before against Fulham at Craven Cottage, but it got ruled out for some imaginary infringement in the wall or something. So yeah, it was, I think I must have said again about 900,000 times today. I'm copying off Gary Bennett because you've had him on the other day. Yeah, it was a significant result. It was a good game, and it was an absolutely out of this world goal. Like, it felt like it had all of the ingredients. A little like Andrew talked about with the Spurs 3-1, which, like I say, I think I was a bit harsh on in hindsight. That had so many different pieces of the jigsaw of making a good game of football. And this, almost like you take a step back, this had all the ingredients to make a fantastic, like, moment of football, not just a game.
Yeah, it was a proper ding-dong game, Andrew. And there's a couple of things that went into it. Obviously, there was the goal, and the final whistle, where I don't think I've ever felt kind of a sense of relief, just that we've done it and we've got over the line. But there was also the added spice that Joey Barton came back from a 6-game ban, if you remember.
I didn't remember that, but yeah, just any time Joey Barton's anywhere near Sunderland, there's spice, because he has some sort of weird perversion where he thinks he has to. The best way he can stay ingratiated with the Mags is by being like the poster boy for anti-Sunderland.
You could have stopped. You could have stopped after he has a weird perversion. To be honest, full stop. End of sentence.
Aye. It just there's a conversation for another day. Joey Barton. This is meant to be a positive pod. Derby days. I'm sometimes kind of caught in two minds about them. I actually don't like the rivalry with Newcastle. I certainly don't in recent years and what it's become and what they've become as a club. I think it's beyond football now. I think there's some very unpleasant things happening with Newcastle United and what they represent. But, go on, Chris.
I was just I'm exactly the same. I don't think the rivalry is there for me anymore because they don't exist as a football club anymore, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. There's but even when it was a different scenario, Derby days sometimes I didn't enjoy because people see it as a license to be horrible. People at work who never speak to you the rest of the year suddenly decide to dig you out and start like, hey, you know that team you love and absolutely adore? Well, I think you're all absolute CUNTSs. And you're like, oh, right, okay. You're my line manager, aren't you? You only ever talk to me when it's Derby day to say you hate Matt Hams. But Derby days when they're good, on the flip side, are amazing. You know, there's been mad sights. I remember somebody was driving around Sunderland on Derby day with a tank he'd hired, and I hope I remember that, and I've not just made it up. And there's some amazing scenes.
I hope his name was Frank.
Yeah. He was driving too fast for us to ask to see his driver's license. That goal was just amazing. Jonny describes that photo brilliantly. If you look closely, there's one poor soul who won't have clocked it's gone in because they're walking up the steps in the northeast corner with their back to it, and they must have got the shock of their lives coming back from the kiosks with like a tray of drinks or whatever, and then everybody around them goes up. But yeah, that game, there was edge to it with Barton, and I mean, let's be honest, Diouf was doing his usual tricks. His probably best contribution in a Sunderland shirt was winning the free kick for Richard and the score. Yeah. Just a stunning goal, that.
Yeah, you talked about the rivalry. Actually, my boss the next morning, he was a Newcastle fan, and I went in early and changed his screensaver to the picture of the goal going in that we're talking about. But I did lots of them, so they were all over his screen.
The thing is, I don't mind a bit of humour, but I often see the nasty side. And me personally, after we've beat them, I'd rather not have to speak to any of them. I'd rather just text me mates and enjoy it. And that game is a reason why, because on the Monday at work, rather than saying, well done, you've won, I remember one of the lads at work just reading off a list of excuses. Oh, the goal was wind assisted, was the one that got us. I thought you said it like a flippant train.
It must have been a Category 9 million hurricane then if it was wind assisted.
I mean, Richardson could line up alongside Kone in that demolition business that they're setting up and down. And I just thought after that, what is the point? Even when we beat yous, this bloke didn't have the humility to just go, aye, fair plays, congratulations. there was still bitter and sour, and I just thought, it'll never change, no matter what.
Just one final thing I want to add on about that game as well, because you talking about the immediate aftermath made us think. Another reason why this is so high for me is literally the next day, we went on holiday to Turkey, flew out from Newcastle airport. So my dad goes, well, you're putting your Sunderland top on at the airport, son. Got there, the only Newcastle tops we saw the whole day were on the shop window dummies in the sports shop. I've never seen so few Newcastle shirts in my life. It was brilliant.
I think that's a perfect place to see us in, because I think we've gassed for far longer than we meant to today, as usual. But let's go into the averages, because I'll just quickly, because I'll add my top 10 in, because it went into the averages. So at 10, I had Man City in 2012. At 9, I had Spurs in 2010. At 8, I had Newcastle in 2013. 7, Chelsea in 2016. 6, Everton in 2016. 5, I had West Ham. They're from this season. 4th, Spurs from 2007. 3rd, Newcastle from 2008, the one we just talked about. 2nd, I had Newcastle 2015. And top place, I had Chelsea from 1999. So this means that in the averages, the top of the list, we had that Newcastle game we were talking about from 2008. In 2nd, we had Chelsea from 1999. 3rd, Chelsea from 2016. 4th, Manchester City from 2012. 5th, Spurs from 2010. 6th, Newcastle from 2013. 7th, Newcastle from 2015. 8th, Spurs from 2007. 9th, Everton from 2016. And in 10th, we had West Ham from this season. So that was our 10 at the end of it.
And just for some context on how wildly different that is from our list, I counted as you went along there. From the average list, I've got 1 in the right position, and I've only got 2 others that are even within one spot of the right place. The rest are at least 2, if not way more away. So, yeah.
Well, me and you dragged the Newcastle one to the top, because you had a top and I had a 3rd, and Andrew had it down in 6th. So even that one that we had top was kind of...
Yeah, questionable.
I'm not saying this to cover my back, but genuinely, it's one of those where there's no right or wrong. You've got your own reasons.
Sometimes it's the day you had it. Did you have a night out after it? Did you not? Did you have a rock and roll time in Morrison's, in the aisles and dancing around the aisles of Morrison's?
I think there was a couple of 2-for-1 deals that day. So, yeah, I was filling my boots.
How was it? With Jeff Stelling, they were dancing in the streets of Total Network Solutions tonight. But anyway, that will leave us for today. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Andrew. Always a pleasure, mate.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good fun.
Yeah. And thanks, Johnny. Absolutely brilliant looking at some of those games.
Yeah. Had a very, very good time doing that one. I feel like I've lost quite a lot of a grip on my sanity in the last couple of hours, but in the best way possible.
There were 1 or 2 tangents. So I hope people stayed with us and enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed talking about it, because thanks again, everyone, for listening. Of course, we'll have loads during the international break, things like this. Maybe not as long as this, because we genuinely didn't mean to go on for so long. I think I'm ill and I'm being slow, so apologies for that. But of course, we'll have loads during the international break, and of course, in the build-up to the Wolves game on How We're the Podcast, and there'll be a podcast every day as usual. But from us, bye for now.
Podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Find the biggest voices in sport on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like Fight Disciples. With me, Adam Catterall, and my good mate Nick Peet. Your ultimate podcast for everything boxing and MMA. From breaking down the biggest fights and in-depth previews and reviews, we bring you closer to the fight game more than ever before. Whether you're a hardcore fan or just starting out, this is the podcast for you. Search Fight Disciples and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.